If you think night patrols are boring, you've clearly never talked to the people who survived them. Because when the streets go quiet, the things hiding in the dark finally come out. Tonight, you'll hear 4 true stories from officers, guards, and night workers who saw what most people never believe. These are the true night patrol stories. Whether you're a security guard, a truck driver, a police officer, or just someone who works late, you know night shifts can get strange. But sometimes they cross the line between unsettling and truly terrifying. Tonight's stories all come from real people working real night patrols, isolated roads, empty facilities, silent neighborhoods, where the darkness isn't the worst thing waiting for them. Listen closely, because one of these stories ends with a detail investigators still can't explain. I've been a patrol officer in Central Texas for a little over 9 years now, and most of my night shifts blend together. You drive the same routes, check the same spots, and talk to the same people who can't sleep. It becomes routine until something breaks the pattern. For me, that moment happened in 2019, around 3:45 a.m. on a cold February morning. The call was simple: suspicious person seen pacing behind an abandoned grocery store. We get a dozen of those every month, usually a drunk or someone trying to sleep behind a dumpster. But this time, dispatch added something unusual. Caller states the subject is tall, very tall, and won't respond when spoken to. I shrugged it off. People exaggerate. Darkness plays tricks, whatever. I headed there alone. The old grocery store sat at the edge of town, dark and hollow, its windows boarded up years ago. The back lot was always empty, just cracked asphalt and a few dead shopping carts rusting in the corners. When I pulled in, I immediately saw the figure standing near the fence line, facing the trees. The caller hadn't been exaggerating. He was huge. At first, I thought he was standing on something, or maybe wearing some kind of costume. But even from a distance, his silhouette looked wrong, too long in the arms, too stiff in the posture. My headlights didn't reach him, so I stepped out with my flashlight. "Sir, this is the police. I need you to turn around for me." Nothing, no movement. I walked closer, shining the light straight at him. And that's when I realized something was really off. His clothes didn't match pants too short, jacket too wide, like he'd thrown on random items from a thrift store. And his skin, what I could see of it, looked pale, like chalk under the beam of my flashlight. "Sir, can you hear me?" Still nothing. No twitch, no response, no shift of his breathing. I placed my hand on my holster, not drawing, just preparing. Something about the air around him felt wrong. Heavy, like static. I tried again. Turn around slowly. Finally, he moved. But not how a person should. He didn't turn his head first or shift his shoulders. His whole upper body rotated at once, stiff and too smooth, like someone turning a mannequin. When my light hit his face, I froze. His eyes were wide open too, wide and glassy, like he wasn't seeing me at all. And his jaw hung slightly open, as if he had forgotten how to close it. But the worst part was the expression. It wasn't fear or confusion or anger. He looked empty. "Sir, I need you to tell me your name." No response. Then he took one step toward me. Now, the thing is, in training, they drill into you that distance is your friend. 21 feet is enough for someone to rush you before you can unholster. So when he stepped forward, I stepped back and put my hand fully on my weapon. "Stop right there." He didn't stop. He took another step, then another slow, deliberate, not threatening, but wrong in a way that made my stomach knot. I raised my voice. "Do not come any closer." His head tilted to the side again, too smoothly. And then he smiled. Not a normal smile, wide, stretched, strained, like someone forcing a grin who'd never seen one before. I drew my weapon. "Get on the ground now." Instead, he stepped backward, and kept stepping back until he disappeared into the tree line without ever turning around, just gliding backward. I approached the tree line carefully, gun raised, flashlight scanning. But as soon as I crossed into the brush, the warmth from my vehicle seemed to vanish. It was quiet, silent in a way forests shouldn't be at night. No wind, no insects, nothing. I searched for 15 minutes. No footprints. No broken branches. No sound of running. Nothing. It was as if he had walked straight into the woods and evaporated. Backup arrived eventually, but by then, the feeling of dread had already settled into my chest. They joked at first, thought I'd seen a drunk or a tall homeless guy, but the expression on my face must have convinced them otherwise. The next day, the caller who reported the man called us again, this time to say the figure was back, standing in the same spot, staring at her window, facing her house. And once again, when approached, he simply vanished into the woods. This haunts me to this day, as he was never seen again. Night patrol officers see things the rest of us never will. But sometimes, what they see isn't entirely human. And if something can stand perfectly still, smile without emotion, and vanish without a sound, you have to ask yourself, was it ever alive to begin with? I work night patrol in southern Oregon, mostly small towns and long, forested highway stretches where the only light at 3 a.m. comes from your cruiser headlights and the occasional passing truck. People think the silence makes the job easier. It doesn't. The silence gives your brain too much space. Space to hear things you shouldn't hear, or notice things you shouldn't notice. This happened 3 years ago, in early autumn. A time when the pine forests turn pitch black after sunset, like the darkness gets thicker between the trunks. I was assigned to patrol a long stretch of Highway 6222 miles of winding road with no houses, no gas stations, nothing but forest. It was a dead night. No calls, no traffic, just the hum of my engine. Around 2:17 a.m., I saw something on the shoulder ahead. At first, it looked like a person walking, but the movement was off. Too smooth, too slow, like someone rehearsing each step. When my headlights finally reached it, I realized it was a person, a man, maybe mid-40s, wearing a gray hoodie and jeans. But the way he stood, he was turned slightly away from the road, head tilted down, hands hanging limply at his sides. I slowed down and rolled the window down. "Sir, are you all right?" He didn't react, didn't move, didn't even flinch. I switched on the spotlight and aimed it at him. That got a reaction, but not the kind I expected. His head snapped up instantly. No transition, no natural motion. Just snap. His face lit up in the harsh beam, and I felt something cold slide down my spine. His eyes were wide open, bloodshot, unfocused, but he wasn't looking at me. He wasn't looking at anything. It was like staring into the eyes of someone sleepwalking. "Sir, I need you to step toward my vehicle." He didn't. Instead, he tilted his head again, sharp, mechanical, and slowly raised his arm to point behind me. That's when I heard it. A soft thump in the back of my patrol car. I whipped around. The back seat was empty, but the sound hadn't come from inside. It had come from the trunk. I stepped out of the cruiser, keeping one eye on the man and one hand on my holster. Another thump, this one louder, coming from directly inside the trunk. Against every instinct I had, I walked toward it. The forest around me was dead silent. No wind, no insects. Just my boots on the asphalt and the faint buzz of the cruiser engine. I reached the trunk and unlocked it. My hand was shaking, and I tried to steady my breathing. Click, the trunk lifted. Empty. Completely empty. I stood there staring into the hollow space, trying to understand what I'd heard. Metal contracting? Something shifting? A tool rolling? But everything was strapped. Nothing was loose, and nothing could have made that heavy, deliberate thump. Then I heard it again, this time inches behind me. Not a thump, a breath. I spun around and aimed my flashlight. The man was gone, not walking away, not running. Gone. The shoulder of the road was empty. No footprints. No sound of movement. No sign he had ever been there. I swept the beam across the tree line, heart pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. Dispatch. Be advised possible missing subject. White male, mid-40s, gray hoodie, last seen. I stopped. My radio was hissing with static. No signal. That only happens in one spot on that highway, near a cluster of dead pine trees locals call the Black Stand. I wasn't near that spot. I got back into the cruiser, locked the doors, and took a slow breath. I tried the radio again, still static. Then I saw something in the rearview mirror, something sitting in the back seat. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. A silhouette, thin, hunched, its head tilted sideways, like it didn't understand how to hold it up. I didn't turn around. Every instinct screamed, don't move, don't look, don't acknowledge. My hand hovered over my weapon. But when I blinked just once, the silhouette was gone. Radio clicked back to life. The static cut. Silence. Then, Unit 14, do you need assistance? I drove back to town with my lights off. My jaw clenched so tight, I gave myself a headache. That was 3 years ago. I still patrol the same roads. But now I check my back seat every single time I get in, or even think about getting in. Because the strangest part wasn't what I saw. It was the breath I felt on my neck while I was sitting there, frozen, afraid to turn around. It didn't feel human. It felt curious. Night patrol officers know the darkness holds more than criminals. Sometimes it watches you, follows you, even sits behind you. And if something can get inside your cruiser without opening a door, what else can it get inside? I'm a sheriff's deputy in northern Minnesota, mostly quiet towns and long stretches of backroads that rarely see more than 2 or 3 cars a night. I actually prefer it, less noise, less chaos. But solitude has a way of making you notice things you wish you hadn't. This happened in late November, during one of my overnight patrols. The temperature had dropped to the low teens, and a thin layer of frost had turned the forest into a field of white needles. My shift was halfway through. Nothing remarkable so far, just the usual welfare checks and a call about a loose dog. Around 2:40 a.m., I turned onto a gravel road that cut through a thick patch of pine forest. Locals called it Sawyer Mile. It wasn't actually a mile, but it felt like no houses, no lights, just a narrow road swallowed by trees. I was maybe a third of the way in when something reflected in my headlights. Not eyes, not an animal. A shape, tall, thin, leaning slightly as if it hadn't yet learned how to stand straight. I slowed down immediately. At first, I thought it was a person walking along the shoulder rear out here, but not impossible. But as I approached, something felt wrong. The figure wasn't moving, not even a sway. No breath condensation in the cold air. It stood perfectly still. I angled my spotlight and hit it directly. That's when I realized it wasn't a person. At least, not anymore. The thing was wearing an old, tattered parka, stiff with frost. Its hood was down, revealing a head covered in thin, patchy hair. The skin underneath had a pale, bluish tint. The eyes were wide open, but they didn't reflect light the way living eyes do. I stepped out of the cruiser and kept my hand near my holster. "Sir, can you hear me?" "Nothing. If you need help, I can assist you." Before I finished speaking, the man or whatever he was turned toward me, not with normal movement. His whole body rotated as one, stiff and unnatural, like a mannequin being turned. I heard the crunch of gravel under my boots as I instinctively stepped back. His face was expressionless. His lips slightly parted, but no sound came from them. He didn't blink. Not once. I took another cautious step back and reached for my radio. "Dispatch, I've got a potential 10 to 56. Male, unresponsive." Before I could finish, the radio cut with a burst of static. It wasn't normal interference. It sounded like a voice, buried beneath the noise like someone whispering directly into the speaker. I froze. The figure took a step forward. A slow, dragging step. His boot scraped the gravel like it weighed 100 pounds. Then another step, and another. He was closing the distance, walking straight toward me with that blank, empty stare. "Stop right there," I shouted. He didn't. I backed up to my cruiser, yanked open the door, and positioned myself behind it, ready to take cover if needed. The figure kept coming. 10 feet. 8. 5. Then he stopped. I could hear my own heartbeat echoing in my ears. His head tilted upward slow, deliberate. And for the first time, I noticed something dripping from his chin. Thick, dark. It froze in the air as it fell, turning into a tiny crystal before hitting the gravel. That's when he opened his mouth. Not wide, just enough to make the smallest sound escape a wet, rattling breath like lungs filled with water. I stepped back into the cruiser and slammed the door shut. My headlights hit his face full on as I threw the vehicle into reverse. He didn't react to the light, didn't cover his eyes, didn't even flinch. He just stared. I reversed all the way down the road until I hit the main highway. When I looked back, he was gone. Not walking away. Not fading into the trees. Just gone. I reported it, but when we returned the next morning, there were no footprints, no drag marks, no melted spots in the frost. Nothing to indicate anyone had ever stood there. The only thing out of place was a shape drawn into the frost on my cruiser right on the back window. A long, thin handprint. Longer than any human hand I've ever seen. Every winter since then, whenever the frost comes back, I check my windows before every shift. And sometimes the frost looks disturbed. Like something tall has been standing close, watching. Not every patrol meets the living. Some encounters belong to the cold, or to the ones who never made it out of the woods. And if something can leave no footprints, it means it didn't need the ground to follow you. I work night patrol in a small Midwestern town, one of those places that feels frozen in time. Changing seasons, the same families for generations, old brick buildings that whisper at night when the temperature drops, and an elementary school sitting at the edge of town, surrounded by fields and a thin tree line. During the day, the place looks harmless. At night, it feels wrong. This incident happened on a fog-heavy night in late October. I was covering the school zone because we'd had reports of trespassers, teenagers sneaking in, messing around on the roof, stealing cones, that kind of thing. Around 1:15 I pulled into the school's parking lot. Everything was silent except for the occasional creak from the old metal playground out back. Fog rolled in waves, thick enough that my flashlight beam looked solid in the air. I started my patrol at the front door, checking the windows and ensuring everything was locked. Then I made my way around the building. The further I got from the streetlights, the darker it became. The tall lights in the back were motion activated, but they hadn't turned on yet. I stepped around the corner and heard it. A swing moving, slow, creaking, back and forth. There was no wind. I raised my flashlight toward the playground. Through the fog, I could see one of the swings moving gently. The chain rattled like someone had just gotten off of it. I scanned the area. Sheriff's office. If someone's out here, make yourself known. No response. I walked closer. The swing kept moving. Not wildly, just enough to look like invisible legs were still pushing against the ground. On the other swings, frost clung to the chains, but not on this one. This one looked. Touched. Used. I stepped onto the wood chips. They crunched loudly under my boots. And then, from behind me, I heard something run. Fast, small footsteps, like a child sprinting. I spun around, flashlight cutting through the fog, but there was nothing there. The sound vanished instantly, like it had been turned off. My hand hovered near my holster. I called out again. "If that's you, come out where I can see you." Still nothing. I turned back to the swing, and it had stopped. Completely. Frozen in midair, no settling sway, no final wobble. Just instantly still. The hairs on my neck stood straight. I scanned the fog-covered playground again. That's when I noticed something near the slide, small shapes in the wood chips. Not footprints, not animal prints. They were handprints. Small ones. Kids' hands pressed deep into the frost-covered chips. I followed them with my light. They trailed around the slide, across the monkey bars, and stopped at the base of the swing set. The swing that had moved moments ago had a pair of handprints beneath it. My breath fogged the air. The temperature felt like it had dropped 10 degrees in seconds. Then I heard it. A laugh. A child's laugh. High-pitched, playful, and right behind me. I spun, heart racing, but again nothing. Just fog drifting slowly. My radio crackled, except dispatch wasn't speaking. Instead, a faint voice, like a little girl whispering through static, said, "Wanna play?" I stumbled back, nearly dropping the radio. Dispatch? Who just transmitted? Did we get interference? But before they could answer, the motion-activated light clicked on overhead. In the flash of cold white light, I saw someone standing near the merry-go-round, small, maybe 4 feet tall, shoulders slightly hunched, just a silhouette through the fog. "Hey," I shouted, "don't move." I stepped forward, but the figure didn't run, didn't flinch. It stood perfectly still. I blinked once. In that moment of darkness, the figure vanished. I swept the flashlight everywhere. No tracks, no sound, no movement, just silence. I backed away slowly, keeping my light on the playground until I reached my cruiser. The fog looked thicker around the swing set, almost like something was standing there watching. When I finally drove off, my headlights caught the swing again. This time, it wasn't moving, but the seat had an impression, like someone small had just been sitting there. I avoid that school at night now unless I'm called, and even then, I don't get out of the cruiser until backup's on the way, because every once in a while, when the fog rolls in thick, I swear I can hear footsteps on the wood chips. Running, playing, laughing, playing, and they're never followed by a child. Children's laughter shouldn't echo on empty playgrounds. Yet some nights, it does. And when the living aren't around to play, something else takes their place. Night patrols are supposed to be predictable, routine, quiet. But the stories you've heard tonight prove one simple truth. When the world goes dark, something else wakes up. And the people who work alone in that darkness, they're the ones who see what the rest of us never will. If you've ever worked a night shift or lived something you still can't explain, share it in the comments below. I read every single one. Thank you for watching. Stay safe out there, because the night is always listening.